Welcome to Recap King. In this video, we will explain Furiosa. This movie tells the story of a former member of the Furiosa gang who is forced to cooperate by the police to erase his brother's criminal record, who turns out to be the leader of the gang. Unexpectedly, his brother had died without knowing who had killed him. So that makes him stop cooperating with the police and focus on finding out his brother's killer and avenging him. Can he uncover the truth about his brother's death? Let's find out in Furiosa.
Przepraszam, że cię w to wciągnęłam.
Po pierwszy raz od dawna czuję, że naprawdę żyję.
Furiosa begins with a scene in a nightclub where a policewoman named Dzika is stalking a big man who is a drug dealer gangster. Inside the VIP room of the nightclub, a gangster boss named Weronika gets into a fight with his business rival, which ends in a stabbing. On the other hand, the club's bodyguard named Golden keeps an eye on the club's condition. Apart from being a bodyguard, he is a member of the Furiosa gang. In the distance, Dzika noticed that Golden didn't see her among the crowds of club visitors. She apparently knows Golden because previously she was a member of Furiosa, even though she finally decided to leave after an incident. After leaving the gang, Dzika eventually became a policewoman. Dzika got into a fight with two visitors at the nightclub until it finally caught Golden's attention. But before he could approach her, she had left the club. The scene moves where Dzika goes to the hospital to meet Dawid, a doctor who is her ex-boyfriend. Like Dzika, Dawid was a member of the Furiosa gang. She didn't come to the hospital to look for him to treat the wound on her forehead. On the other hand, she wants to discuss Kasub, Dawid's older brother and leader of the Furiosa gang, who has committed so many crimes that he faces a life sentence. However, Dawid refuses to talk about Kasub and the Furiosa gang because he was expelled from the gang as he was considered a coward. On the other hand, in a boxing arena, Kasub will fight against a fighter in the presence of a group of Furiosa members. Although he had trouble dealing with attacks on the opponent in the first round, the gang leader finally managed to win the fight. That's when Dawid came to the boxing arena to tell him about the police looking for him. But after seeing the state of the arena and Kasub, who had just won the fight, Dawid canceled his intention to tell his older brother. At the police station, Dzika and the police chief, Thomas, have a secret mission to capture Weronika and Polonsky, two drug dealer gangster bosses who have great influence in Poland. The conversation with Thomas revealed the real reason why Dzika became a police officer. Apparently, she decided to become a policewoman after her younger brother, a member of the Furiosa gang, was killed in a brawl. Dawid agreed to meet with Dzika and Thomas the next day at a cafe. He reveals that Kasub and Weronika have been at odds for a long time, while many members of Furiosa's gang, including Golden, work as bodyguards and aides at Polonsky's nightclub. After hearing this explanation, Thomas offered to make Dawid work as a police spy to catch Weronika and Polonsky. To do this, Dawid must be able to rejoin the Furiosa gang, considering that his older brother is the gang leader and has direct connections to Weronika and Polonsky. Thomas tries to convince Dawid that if he agrees to be a spy, then all of Kasub's criminal records will be erased so that he escapes the threat of life imprisonment. Dawid looks reluctant to accept the offer, and Dzika tries to influence him by mentioning the Kasub family, who certainly don't want to lose their father and husband. Dawid was still reluctant to accept the offer, but he finally decided to go to Kasub's house. The atmosphere at Kasub's place was so warm, especially when they had dinner with Kasub's wife and only daughter, Susie and Camilla. While having dinner and joking, Golden suddenly came and immediately greeted the Kasub family in a friendly manner, even though he clearly seemed to have a problem with Dawid. The warmth and closeness of the family made Dawid determined to cooperate with the police. The next day, a group of police officers led by Dzika was conducting surveillance on the Furiosa gang after getting help from Dawid. On the other hand, Dawid followed Golden to request that he re-enter the gang, although his request was immediately opposed by Golden and other Furiosa members. They can't do anything because the decision to accept him into the gang rests with the leader, Kasub. Back to the police, their surveillance was not in vain until they finally managed to catch the Furiosa gang. However, when they were about to stop a bus usually used by Furiosa members, it turned out that no one was in it but statues that were deliberately placed to trick them. Furiosa apparently already knew that the police were stalking and following them at that time. Dzika then tried to contact Dawid, but he was with other Furiosa members and took off the communication monitor that was previously given. Furiosa's gang apparently came to the arena on the pine forest edge to fight with Weronika's gang. On the other hand, Kasub saw Dawid's presence and immediately scolded his younger brother for thinking he had come to humiliate him. Not long after that, Marufka's gang came with so many more members, and Golden suggested they fight with weapons, which Kasub refused as it would damage Furiosa's good name. Kasub actually strengthens and encourages members of Furiosa, even though Marufka's gang has never lost a fight. The battle between the two gangs began. When the action of the fight was exciting, Dawid was in the back, trying to muster the courage to move forward in the fight. Despite being outnumbered, Furiosa's gang ended up winning the fight. While in the euphoria of victory, a member of the Furiosa gang actually experiences a seizure. Dawid, a doctor, swiftly provided first aid before ordering the member to be rushed to the hospital. Dawid's responsive action to save the lives of members of Furiosa made Kasub melt, until he finally announced that Dawid was officially readmitted as part of the gang. Furiosa returned to the base where they intended to celebrate the victory. Unfortunately, as soon as they entered the headquarters, they were surprised to see the police conducting an investigation, including Thomas. He said that the investigation was carried out to find the stolen flag from the stadium, even though the police actually came to make sure Dawid was accepted into the Furiosa gang. The next day, Polonsky calls Golden to give him a new job to replace Xavi, who was previously killed for treason. He told him to invite one of his trusted people to pick up an item from the port. On the other hand, Dawid reminisced about the past when he was still a member of the Furiosa gang, at which time Kasub assigned him with Golden and Dzika's younger brother, Zaro, to fight against enemy gangs. The fight was not a draw, and it didn't take long before the enemy ganged up on Zaro and Golden. At that time, Dawid did nothing and only watched from afar. He did not participate in the fight to help Golden and Drazo, until finally, Zaro was ganged up to death. Since then, Golden hates Dawid so much and forces Kasub to get him out of the gang. Dawid is very sorry that his cowardice made Zaro die until his relationship with Dzika ended. The scene returns to the present when Dzika comes to Dawid's house and is angry because she thinks he deviated from the plans for that day to arrest Marufka's gang. The next day, Dawid returns to Furiosa's headquarters and practices his fight against Golden in the ring. Golden takes revenge on Dawid and beats him to a pulp. At the ringside, Kasub sees news of Xavi's body being found in the trash and calls Golden to advise him to stop working for Polonsky. But Kasub's warning only made him angry. While outside the base, Dawid tries to get information about Xavi's death from Golden, but to no avail. At the same time, the police raided Kasub and other Furiosa members at the headquarters and arrested Marufka's gang for information. Knowing their gang leader and members had been arrested, Golden and Bula turned to the police a few hours later. The members of Furiosa and Marufka's gang, including Kasub, are interrogated about Xavi's death, but they all have strong alibis. When interrogating Golden, he actually mentioned Dzika's involvement in Furiosa and the death of her younger brother so that she got emotional. In the end, both gangs were released due to the absence of strong evidence. Meanwhile, the drug trafficking business run by Marufka's gang is getting stronger and even expanding in different areas. While Dzika again urged Dawid to look for more concrete evidence regarding the Furiosa and Marufka gangs, he instead said that she became a police officer in revenge for the death of her younger brother. On the other hand, when the Furiosa gang members are on a bus to watch a football match, Olo tells Dawid that Zaro's death is not entirely his fault. Zaro died because of the knife he carried himself. When they arrived, the police had blocked them and forbade them to enter because they were considered to be always rioting. So Furiosa's gang became emotional and then brutally broke down the gate. The scene shifts to Marufka, who cuts off the hand of one of his subordinates, John, after being caught selling information to the police. That night when Dzika came to visit, John blamed her for what had happened to him. His situation made Dzika worried for Dawid's safety, so she tried to contact him. The next day, there was chaos on the bus when a gang and supporters of the opposing football club beat up several passengers. Dawid, who was on the bus, initially did not want to interfere, but his emotions peaked when one of the gang members provoked him by slapping him repeatedly. Finally, he hit the gang member back, and that's when another member of Furiosa got into the bus and beat them hard. Apparently, Dawid was intentionally on the bus to spy on enemy gangs. Dawid's brave actions have received praise from members of the Furiosa gang, especially Golden and Kasub, who are proud that he has changed from 10 years ago. Golden began to carry out the task from Polonsky and picked up the goods from the port to be delivered to the printing house. Unbeknownst to them, at that time, the police had conducted raids and investigated the printing house. Fortunately, Kasub noticed the police action, who stopped Golden's car before entering the printing house. When Polonsky found out about the incident, he blamed Golden for being reckless and not good at looking at the situation. On the other hand, Polonsky thanked Kasub. However, Kasub told Polonsky that the Furiosa members would no longer work for him. After leaving the place, Kasub again advised Golden to stop working for Polonsky, because working as a drug dealer was like ending our lives. Apparently, Dzika leaked information about the raid on the printing house to Kasub, without Thomas knowing, to protect the Furiosa gang. Then, she called Dawid to the police station and took him into the interrogation room. However, not long after Dzika spoke with Dawid, Thomas entered the room and asked her to come out. After living alone with Dawid, Thomas shows all the evidence of Kasub's crimes and asks him to immediately reveal Polonsky and Marufka's drug business. Meanwhile, at Furiosa's headquarters, Kasub gathers the members and asks them to leave if they still want to work for Polonsky. However, none of the Furiosa members left, including Golden. Unfortunately, at the police station, Dawid revealed that Golden worked for Polonsky to pick up drugs, so Thomas gave Dawid 1 week to collect evidence if he didn't want Kasub to go to jail. The next day, Kasub and Dawid were sitting together on the beach when his older brother asked him to leave Furiosa to focus on being a doctor. Kasub then said he would keep Furiosa and remain the leader for the sake of members who had joined the gang since childhood. It was then that Dawid finally honestly revealed that he had been a police informant to protect him. Kasub was disappointed because he had trusted him and even allowed him to join Furiosa. That night, a group of people ganged up on Kasub until he was seriously injured. Kasub's life could not be saved at the hospital, and he died. Members of the Furiosa gang are deeply saddened by Kasub's death, and Golden says that the perpetrators of the beating were Marufka's gang. They plan a revenge mission, but Golden does not agree with the plan because Furiosa will be outnumbered by Marufka's gang. To vent his anger, Golden beats up 2 members of Marufka's gang, which they manage to take hostage. After that, he approached Dawid and warned him to be careful with Dzika. Dawid told Dzika he had broken a deal with the police to become a spy at a different time because Kasub was dead. He then said that his focus is on Kasub's revenge against Marufka's gang. At Furiosa's headquarters, Golden manages to capture Polonsky and 2 of his accomplices to force them to sign a business transfer agreement with Furiosa's gang. Golden takes this step so that the Furiosa gang has an equal position with Marufka's gang to facilitate the revenge mission. At first, Polonsky refused Golden's request, but he was forced to accept it after Golden threatened to harm his grandson. After getting Polonsky's autograph on the agreement, Golden forces Dawid to shoot Polonsky, but he doesn't have enough courage, so Golden does it himself. Polonsky was shot dead, and Furiosa took over all of his business. The life of the gang members changed, especially Golden, who immediately got a new car. But while driving his car, Marufka's gang attacks him. Golden was ready to fight back and was surprised to know that Marufka's gang had not come to kill him but to offer cooperation. He then accepted the offer of cooperation for Furiosa's business, which can continue to grow, considering that he is still relatively unprofessional in running his own business. Golden's luxurious life continues until he forgets their main mission of revenge. He even told other members of Furiosa's gang, including Dawid, to forget his grudge against Marufka's gang. Golden reasoned that by working together and forgetting the mission of revenge, they would be able to take over the power of the Marufka gang from within. Eventually, they will become the single biggest gang in town. Golden's proposal was immediately rejected outright. The members of the Furiosa gang think that he has been blinded by money and power. Surprisingly, Golden said he didn't care if the other members disagreed because he was the chairman and all the decisions were in his hands. Elsewhere, Marufka was caught by Dzika and other police officers after it was revealed that drugs were in the car. But he still managed to escape because one of his men recognized the drugs as his own. In the evening, Marufka stops Dawid's car thinking he sells information to the police. While beating Dawid, he said he was not a coward who killed Kasub. On the other hand, he expressed his respect for Kasub, who was seen as a true leader. Failing to catch Marufka, the police raided Golden at his home. When Golden was about to run away, Dzika managed to catch him. At the police station, it is revealed that Golden is Kasub's killer, but Thomas asks him to be a police informant to arrest Marufka if he wants to be cleared of all charges. Dzika, who heard about it, was disappointed and told Thomas why he wanted to make a deal with a murderer. After accepting Thomas' offer, Golden leaked all of Marufka's activities and businesses, from drug production to distribution and smuggling. Because of Golden's information, the police managed to confiscate Marufka's contraband from the port. Unfortunately, Marufka did not come to the port to collect the goods after his lawyer informed him of Golden's betrayal. The police once again failed to arrest him. Not long after, Dzika came to Furiosa's headquarters and showed them the CCTV footage that became evidence of Golden's murder of Kasub. Dawood forces the other members to confess if they were involved in the murder. It was then that John said that he found out that Golden was in contact with another member of the gang, Dynamo. Furiosa's gang members looking for Golden at a nightclub, and Dawood challenges him to a one-on-one fight. The fight ends with Dawood nearly killing Golden, but the other members of Furiosa stop him. In the end, the Furiosa members killed Golden, though when the police officers led by Thomas arrived, they were all arrested. However, Dzika pulled Dawood out of the club. After the members of Furiosa admit that they killed Golden, it is revealed that Weronika has always managed to escape because the police chief cooperated with Weronika's lawyer. Furiosa closed by showing Dzika, who decided to leave as a police officer to spend time with Dawood. But right at the end of the movie, Weronika's gang member who previously slapped Dawood on the bus found him and stabbed him. After that, Dawood, who was seriously injured, walked to the beach to see the wide sea. The moral that can be learned from this movie is that even if someone looks cowardly, great courage will appear to protect the people they care about.